In June 2025, the world watched with bated breath as a new chapter in the China-Taiwan conflict began to unfold. Newsrooms across the globe buzzed with urgent updates, and millions tuned in to follow every development, aware that the stakes had never been higher. Tensions between China and Taiwan reached a dramatic new peak, sending shockwaves through both local communities and the international stage. In Taipei, crowds gathered in public squares, eyes glued to screens, while military radar stations scanned the skies for any sign of escalation. Then Beijing made headlines with a bold and controversial statement: "We cannot invade our own territory." The phrase was repeated by officials and splashed across news tickers, instantly becoming the focal point of global discussion. This was China's official response to mounting accusations that it was preparing to invade Taiwan. The government's words were carefully chosen, but their meaning was unmistakable. The phrase quickly spread across news outlets and social media platforms, igniting fierce debate among experts, politicians, and ordinary citizens alike. Hashtags trended, and opinion pieces flooded the internet, each dissecting the implications of Beijing's stance. The statement came on the heels of a series of large-scale military drills near Taiwan's coast. Chinese naval ships maneuvered in the strait, and satellite images revealed a significant buildup of military assets, raising international concern. Chinese warships and fighter jets circled the island, their presence impossible to ignore. In Taipei and beyond, alarms were raised, as the threat of conflict seemed to draw ever closer, casting a shadow over daily life. The Chinese government insisted that these actions were simply internal affairs, a matter of sovereignty and national unity. Officials stood firm at press conferences, defending their position to both domestic and international audiences. In Beijing's view, Taiwan is an inseparable part of China, and therefore any military movement is not an invasion but an internal operation. This perspective was emphasized repeatedly, both in official statements and visual displays. Yet many people around the world found this argument confusing, even troubling. International analysts debated the legitimacy of China's claim, while citizens in other countries watched anxiously, aware that the outcome could reshape global politics. For many, the line between mainland China and Taiwan is clear and unmistakable, a boundary that represents more than just geography, but also identity and self-determination. For others, the situation is far more complicated, tangled in decades of history, shifting alliances, and unresolved political disputes. The roots of the conflict stretch back generations, making any resolution elusive. This single statement from Beijing revealed just how deep the disagreement runs. Both sides stood firm, unwilling to compromise. As protests erupted and diplomatic meetings grew increasingly tense, the world watched, holding its breath, and wondered, could this war of words escalate into something far more dangerous? As night fell over Taipei and Beijing, uncertainty lingered, and the possibility of conflict loomed larger than ever. The China-Taiwan conflict is not just a local issue, it matters to the entire world. This is because both places are important in global politics, security, and trade. The Taiwan Strait is a busy waterway, and what happens here can affect shipping and the global economy. Many countries, especially the United States, watch the area closely. If a conflict breaks out, it could draw in powerful nations and spread quickly. The region is also home to some of the world's most advanced technology companies. Disruption here would impact supply chains everywhere. People worry about peace and stability. A clash between China and Taiwan could mean war in Asia and possibly beyond. This would bring uncertainty for millions of people, not just in these two places, but all over the world. For these reasons, the world's eyes remain fixed on every move, every statement, and every military exercise in the Taiwan Strait. In May 2025, Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te gave a speech that caught everyone's attention. He spoke about Taiwan's democracy and its right to decide its own future. Lai said Taiwan would not bow to threats and would defend its way of life. His words were clear. Taiwan sees itself as separate from China. Beijing reacted with anger. Chinese officials called Lai's speech provocative. They accused him of pushing for independence, which China says is a red line. The Chinese government warned that any move toward formal independence would bring a strong response. Soon after Lai's speech, China launched major military drills around Taiwan. Chinese warplanes crossed the median line in the Taiwan Strait. Warships circled the island, sending a message that China was ready to act if needed. This back and forth of speeches and shows of force added to the tension. Each side accused the other of raising the risk of conflict. To truly understand the roots of today's dispute over Taiwan, we need to look back through centuries of history, tracing the shifting tides of power, war, and identity that have shaped the region. The story of Taiwan and China is not just about recent politics, it's a tale woven through dynasties, colonial ambitions, and the aftermath of global conflict. In the 1600s, Taiwan became part of the Qing dynasty, which at the time was the ruling power over China. The Qing dynasty extended its influence over Taiwan, integrating the island into its vast empire. This marked the beginning of formal Chinese rule over Taiwan, setting the stage for future claims and disputes. But in 1895, after losing the First Sino-Japanese War, China was forced to sign the Treaty of Shimonoseki. As a result, Taiwan was ceded to Japan, marking a dramatic shift in the island's fate. This transfer was not just a change of rulers, it was a turning point that would influence the identity and development of Taiwan for decades to come. For the next 50 years, Taiwan remained under Japanese rule. During this period, the Japanese government invested in infrastructure, education, and industry, but also imposed strict control and sought to assimilate the local population. The legacy of Japanese rule can still be seen in Taiwan's architecture, culture, and even in some aspects of daily life. After World War II ended in 1945, Japan surrendered, and Taiwan was handed back to China. At that time, China was governed by the Republic of China, or ROC. The ROC took control of Taiwan, but the transition was not always smooth, as tensions simmered between the new rulers and the local population. Soon after, China was plunged into a brutal civil war between the ROC and the Communist Party. The conflict tore the country apart, with both sides fighting for control of the nation's future. Cities were devastated, and millions of lives were affected by the chaos and violence. In 1949, the Communists emerged victorious on the mainland, establishing the People's Republic of China, or PRC, with Mao Zedong as its leader. This marked a new era for China, but it also deepened the divide between the mainland and Taiwan. The defeated ROC government, along with many supporters and refugees, fled to Taiwan. They brought with them the hope of one day reclaiming the mainland and establish their own government on the island, separate from the PRC. Since then, the PRC has ruled mainland China, while the ROC has governed Taiwan. The two governments have operated independently, each developing its own political systems, economies, and societies. For decades, both sides claimed to be the legitimate government of all China, refusing to recognize each other's authority. This rivalry fueled tensions not just within China, but also on the international stage. Over time, most countries around the world, including the United Nations, shifted their recognition from the ROC to the PRC as the official government of China. This diplomatic change isolated Taiwan, but it did not erase its unique identity or its separate government. Despite these changes, Taiwan has maintained its own government, military, and vibrant society. The island has developed a distinct culture and democratic system, setting it apart from the mainland in many ways. This complex history continues to shape the arguments and debates we hear today about who has the right to rule Taiwan, what defines a country's independence, and how the world should respond to the ongoing dispute. The story of Taiwan and China is far from over, and its next chapter is still being written. China and Taiwan tell, pretty different stories about their history and legal rights. The divide between these two places isn't just about geography, it's about how each side sees itself, and how they want the world to see them. Their stories shape not only their own identities, but also how other countries interact with them. The Chinese government says Taiwan has always been part of China. This isn't just a political stance, it's a core part of their national narrative, repeated in speeches, textbooks, and media. They point to history and international agreements after World War II, like the Cairo and Potsdam declarations, as proof that Taiwan should be under Chinese rule. These documents, they argue, show the world agreed with their claim. In their view, any move for Taiwan's independence is illegal. They see it as a threat to their sovereignty and national unity, and they're willing to use strong words, and sometimes even military pressure to make their point. But Taiwan's leaders, well, they see things differently. For them, the story's about self-determination and democracy. They say that Taiwan has its own government, elections, and military. These aren't just symbols, they're proof, they argue, that Taiwan operates as a separate country in practice, even if not everyone recognizes it officially. Most people in Taiwan identify as Taiwanese, not Chinese. Over the years, this sense of identity has only grown stronger, especially among the younger generation. They argue that Taiwan has become a separate society, with its own identity and laws. From the foods they eat to the way they vote, life in Taiwan is distinct from life in mainland China. Each side uses these stories to support their claims. These competing narratives are repeated in the media, in classrooms, and in international forums, shaping public opinion and government policy. China uses its power and influence to stop other countries from recognizing Taiwan as a separate nation. They pressure international organizations and governments to treat Taiwan as just a province of China. Taiwan, on the other hand, works to build ties with friendly countries and show the world it is different from China. Through trade, culture, and diplomacy, they try to carve out a space for themselves on the global stage. These two views are really at the heart of the current crisis. The tension isn't just about territory, it's about whose story will shape the future. Neither side is willing to give in. As long as these stories clash, the conflict over Taiwan's status will remain one of the world's most complex and dangerous disputes. In recent years, military tension in the Taiwan Strait has grown. China now sends warplanes and ships near Taiwan almost every week. Some of these planes cross the median line, which is, an unofficial border in the strait. China says these actions are normal, but Taiwan calls them threats. Taiwan has responded by strengthening its defenses. It holds its own military drills and buys new weapons, mostly from the United States. Taiwan's government warns its people to be ready for emergencies. Air raid drills and civil defense training have become more common. Both sides watch each other closely. Sometimes even a small incident, like a ship getting too close, can cause panic. Experts warn that one mistake could lead to a bigger conflict. The military moves are not just for show. They are a way for both sides to send a message. We are ready, and we will not back down. The United States is Taiwan's most important partner. It sells weapons to Taiwan and promises to help if the island is attacked. U.S. warships often sail through the Taiwan Strait to show support for Taiwan and keep the sea open for everyone. NATO countries like the United Kingdom and France also pay close attention. Some have sent ships or made public statements to warn China against using force. These moves are meant to show unity and support for peace. China sees foreign involvement as interference. It warns that outside countries should stay out of what it calls China's internal affairs. This disagreement makes the situation more complicated and dangerous. With so many powerful countries involved, any clash over Taiwan could quickly become a global crisis. Taiwan is a small island, but it plays a huge role in the world economy. It is home to the world's top makers of computer chips, or semiconductors. These chips are found in smartphones, cars, computers, and even military equipment. If conflict stops chip production in Taiwan, the world would feel it quickly. Many big companies depend on Taiwanese technology. A shortage of chips could slow down factories everywhere and make products more expensive. Taiwan is also an important trading partner for many countries. Its ports are busy with ships carrying goods to and from Asia, America, and Europe. The world depends on Taiwan's stability and economy. This is why so many countries work hard to keep peace in the Taiwan Strait. Taiwan's economic health is closely tied to the world's. The risk of miscalculation is real. One wrong move, an accidental clash at sea, a misunderstood signal, could quickly lead to war. The stakes are high, not just for China and Taiwan, but for the whole world. Diplomacy is more important than ever. Leaders from all sides need to talk, listen, and find peaceful solutions. War would bring suffering, disrupt the global economy, and hurt millions of people. The future is uncertain. Will China and Taiwan find a way to live in peace, or will their differences lead to conflict? Can the world help them find common ground? As we watch events unfold, we must ask ourselves, what kind of world do we want to see? One of conflict, or one of cooperation and peace?